Every move you've ever played on chess.com got a label, and most players have no idea what they actually mean. From the catastrophic blunder all the way up to the legendary brilliant move that almost nobody ever sees. I'm ranking all 12 move classifications from the worst to the absolute best. By the end, you'll know exactly what each one means, why the engine gave it, and which ones you're throwing away every single game. The last three are the rarest in all of chess. Let's start at the very bottom. Here's why this matters. Every time you click Game Review, chess.com runs your moves through an engine and grades every single one. But almost nobody understands what separates a good move from a best move, or why one sacrifice gets a quiet mistake, while another identical-looking sacrifice lights up the board as brilliant. And that misunderstanding is costing you rating. If you don't know the difference between a miss and a blunder, you can't fix the leak. If you don't know what makes a move brilliant, you'll never play one on purpose. Understanding these 12 labels is like being handed the engine's own scorecard for your brain. It tells you exactly where your games are won and lost. We're going from the move that throws the game away, all the way up to the 1 in 1,000 that wins it on the spot. Number 12. Blunder. The move leaves your hand, and then you see it. The threat that was sitting right in front of you the whole time. At the beginner level, games are decided almost entirely by who blunders less. Here white has a knight on f3 and a bishop on c4, eyeing the f7 pawn. The knight jumps to g5 to attack it. Looks aggressive, but black just takes the knight with the queen for free, a whole piece gone. And it gets worse. White lines a rook and queen up on the g-file, plays queen takes g7, certain it's checkmate, except across the board, completely out of sight, a black bishop is staring right at that queen. Not mate, just the most powerful piece on the board, gone for nothing. Miss, you played a perfectly reasonable move. The position's fine, the game goes on, then you run the review and there it is, the move you walked straight past. You're in the Scandinavian, your queen on a5, and your opponent plays queen h5, hitting your f7 pawn. It looks scary, so you block with e6. Solid, except your queen was staring directly at the white queen the entire time. One move and the strongest piece on the board was yours for free. Instead, you played e6, and the game rolled on like nothing happened. The stronger you get, the fewer misses you have. Not from calculating more, but from seeing more. Mistake. A step beyond an inaccuracy, and much harder to ignore. In the opening, it might be dropping a central pawn to a miscalculation. You're not lost on the spot, but that pawn is gone and it's going to haunt you. Here's a nastier one. You're already down a pawn in a rook endgame, fighting for a draw. You move your rook to what feels like an active square, and your opponent fires back a rook check, winning a second pawn you simply cannot afford. The game's not over, but defending just went from hard to nearly hopeless. Most amateur games aren't lost to one disaster, they're lost to a slow pile of mistakes. Missed win, this one stings. The most painful version is the accidental stalemate. You're converting a totally winning queen and king endgame. The enemy king is cornered, and then, one move too aggressive, the king has no legal move, and it's a draw. The win you already had just evaporated. But a missed win can hide in plain sight too. A few moves into a caro can. White has a knight that can jump to a square that looks completely ordinary, but the queen on e2 pins black's pawn, the king can't escape, and it's immediate checkmate. Most players in that spot play something sensible and move on, never knowing the game was already over. Inaccuracy. The move looked natural, the position seemed fine. You moved on without a second thought. But somewhere in there, a small edge slipped. Say you're 3 moves into the opening and instead of developing a piece you push a little pawn, h6, h3, just making space. The game doesn't fall apart, but you wasted a tempo, handed your opponent a free move and created a tiny weakness that might not matter for 20 moves, until it does. Even grandmasters play inaccuracies. One is nothing. A string of them and your position drifts somewhere you never chose to go. Book. Before the game even starts, chess has been played, millions of times over hundreds of years. The same opening sequences tested and memorized by the strongest players alive. Book moves are those sequences. Established theory chess.com recognizes from its database. Some lines stay in book all the way to move 15. Most beginners follow theory for a few moves, then go off the book entirely. And that's completely fine. Book moves aren't a grade on your skill. They're neutral. You're just walking a path that's already been walked. That's the bottom half. The mistakes and the neutral moves. From here up, these are the moves that win games. The top 3 are the ones almost nobody ever plays. Forced. Not the best move, not a good move, the only move. Usually it happens when your king is in check and exactly one square is safe. Say white plays, bishop takes h7 check. The black king has one square to step to. That's forced, and it isn't necessarily bad. In fact, white's check might be a mistake if black can trap that bishop before it escapes. And it goes further. When your opponent is mating you with a queen and king, and your king just shuffles back and forth in the corner, every one of those moves is forced too. Completely different positions, same label. One move, no choice. Good. Nobody talks about good moves. A good move just keeps the position solid. It avoids problems, does what needs doing, and moves on. In that same rook endgame, instead of the flashy active move that drops a pawn, you play something quieter, a move that covers the threats and keeps your drawing chances alive without creating new problems. Not the best move, but sensible, practical, and really hard to punish. Players who consistently make good moves are some of the most annoying opponents in the world to beat, because they just never hand you anything. Excellent. The engine liked it. Not its number one choice, but so close the difference is meaningless in a real game. Picture the London system. On move 6, you push a pawn to start a kingside attack. Strong idea. Doesn't weaken you, puts real pressure on your opponent. The engine had a slightly different plan in mind, but your move is excellent chess. A few moves later, you castle. Also excellent. Play a whole game full of excellent moves and you're playing at a genuinely high level. Not miracles, not perfect calculation, just consistently strong decisions that give your opponent nothing. Best, the top move. Sometimes a best move is completely obvious. You trade pieces and recapture. Simple. Other times it's a deeply calculated idea that took minutes to find. The label doesn't care which. In that same London position, it's the quiet knight development the engine prefers over the pawn push. Straightforward, not flashy, but exactly what the position demanded. Here's the thing, string together a long run of best moves across an entire game, and you are seeing the board the way the engine sees it. That is rare, and it's the whole thing worth working toward. Great. A great move is the one move that works where everything else falls apart. These show up constantly in endgames because endgames demand precision. Picture your king buried on the back rank, pawns locked around it, and your opponent has a forced checkmate you cannot stop. The only way out is a back rank rook check. Force a recapture and deliver checkmate yourself before they ever land theirs. Any other move and you're dead. It's not flashy, it's not a sacrifice. It's just the exact right idea in a position where everything else fails. And sometimes the only survival is a perpetual check, trapping the king to force the draw. Every one of those checks, great. And number 1 is the rarest move in all of chess. Most players go hundreds of games without ever seeing it. Brilliant. The rarest label on chess.com, and the one every player is secretly chasing. A brilliant isn't just the best move, it's a move so unexpected most players would never even look at it. Here white has a rook, bishop and queen all aimed at the castled king. The rook jumps to f6, taking a knight. On paper, a terrible trade, a rook for a knight. But that knight was the only thing stopping mate. With it gone, the queen mates on h7 next move. Brilliant or blunder? Pause and decide before chess.com does. It's brilliant. And one more, the queen captures a rook in the center, black recaptures thinking they won the exchange, but now a knight forks the king and queen on d7, and everything white gave up comes back with interest. That's a brilliant move. not just impressive, usually the only winning idea hiding in the position that nobody else would find. So there's the full scorecard, 12 move classifications, ranked from the game-ending blunder all the way up to the 1 in 1,000 brilliance. Now you'll never look at game review the same way again. Here's my question. What's the best move you've ever played? Did you ever get an actual brilliant? Drop it in the comments, I want to hear it. And be honest, how many blunders did you play just this week? No judgment. We've all been there. If this finally made those little symbols make sense, subscribe. The next ranking breaks down every chess rating from total beginner all the way to grandmaster. Now go review your last game and see how you really played.